All right, let's jump right in. When you picture the biblical Abraham, you probably think of a simple wanderer in the desert, right? Well, what if that's only half the story? Today, we're looking at Abraham from a totally different angle. Not just as a nomad, but as a brilliant cultural architect who basically used an ancient form of data transfer to reshape human history.
So, that's the big question we're tackling. If he wasn't just some guy chosen out of nowhere, then who was he, really? The evidence points to someone way more complex, and frankly way more intellectually powerful than the character we usually imagine.
And this slide really puts it all in perspective. On one side, you have the myth we all know, the humble wanderer. But on the other, the evidence paints a picture of a highly educated man, a sophisticated Sumerian intellectual who grew up in one of the most advanced civilizations on Earth at the time.
75. Let that number sink in for a second. This isn't just his age when he left home. No, this number is the key that unlocks this entire story. It's a timeline that changes everything we thought we knew.
That's right. For 75 years, a full lifetime back then, Abraham was completely immersed in the culture, the science, the myths, and the worldview of Mesopotamia. This wasn't a weekend seminar. This was the very bedrock of his education. It shaped everything about him.
Okay, so this brings up a huge practical problem. If you're a nomadic leader and you've got a lifetime of knowledge in your head, how do you take it all with you? I mean, it's not like you can pack up a few hundred clay tablets for a trek across the desert.
And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The great libraries of his home city, Ur, were filled with these heavy, fragile clay tablets. They were built to stay put. So how do you make an entire culture's knowledge base portable?
The answer was absolutely ingenious. He used something we're calling the oral archive. Think of it like a living, breathing hard drive. Instead of being etched in clay, knowledge was encoded in spoken epics, poems, and stories. It was a library literally built for the road, carrying the intellectual DNA of his people.
So what we're talking about is a major tech upgrade. The clay tablets were like old desktop computers, incredibly powerful, but completely immobile. The verbal epics, those were the new smartphones, flexible, portable, and you could update the software on the fly.
You can just picture it, can't you? This wasn't some stuffy, silent library. This was knowledge brought to life. It was performed, it was debated, and it was passed from one generation to the next around the campfire. It became the very heartbeat of the clan's culture.
But here's the crucial part. Abraham wasn't just trying to preserve information. He was using this oral archive for something way bigger, way more ambitious. He was launching a calculated cultural renaissance. He wasn't a librarian, he was an editor-in-chief, and he was rewriting the human story.
See, he had his own agenda. This wasn't about passively recording what had happened. It was an intentional reframing of the biggest stories of his time. His goal? To redefine the entire foundation of faith. And his method was to take the powerful archetypes he learned in Sumeria and adapt them. And this table shows you exactly how he did it. He'd take a Mesopotamian source, like their complex creation myths, and distill it down to a single, focused character like Adam. Then, he'd give that character a brand new role in his streamlined narrative. So Adam becomes the prototype of all humanity. Cain becomes the symbol for the architect of civilization. Noah becomes the chosen survivor. Each one was a remix, designed for a new purpose.
And the long-term impact of this project was just staggering. This was so much more than an academic exercise. This act of intellectual engineering created a direct through line from the ancient cosmology of Sumer all the way to the foundation of Mosaic law.
You can see the whole strategy laid out right here. First, he spends 75 years mastering the source material. Second, he develops the perfect mobile technology to carry it, his oral archive. From there, he adapts the key stories to build a new monotheistic bedrock, which ultimately paves the way for a whole new system of laws and beliefs.
And that's really why this is so important. This view suggests that his extensive Sumerian education literally influenced the DNA of what would become the Jewish religion. It wasn't a complete break from the past, but a very sophisticated and intentional re-engineering of it. So when you pull all these pieces together, it does more than just give us a new portrait of Abraham. It forces us to rethink the entire timeline of our shared history and where some of the world's most foundational ideas actually came from.
The conclusion you can't really escape here is that our standard timeline for how these religious ideas developed might not just be a little bit off. It might require something, well, something much bigger.
a radical re-examination. It suggests that the origins of monotheism are deeper, older, and far more intellectually complex than we've ever given them credit for, tied directly to the cultural superpower of the ancient world.
Which leaves us with one last, kind of mind-blowing question to think about. We like to think of history as a collection of facts, but if it's really a story that gets passed down, you have to ask yourself, who were its first and maybe its most powerful editors?